So as we get started today, this video is divided into chapters. If you want to skip at any point, just look at the sliding bar underneath the plating window and you can see the chapters to skip ahead. Welcome back to the Stitch Sampler, and I'm your host Mikey of the Crochet Crowd, and today we're going to move on doing the Evening Star motif that is part of the sampler. This one I actually found kind of difficult to wrap my head around, so I did it slowly last night. Maybe I was tired, but it actually does a really nice cool look to it. And what we have to do to begin this is that we just have to identify where our corners are, because that was kind of my hang up when I was doing this. So what I'm gonna try to do step by step using the same size hook of 5mm size H, whatever yarn you decided to do, and then we're gonna go through the instructions step by step in order to complete this. It may not be so hard for me doing it the second time around, but first time reading the instructions and following it was a little more difficult. The only thing that I need to point out to you is that when we start off in the very beginning here, these are clusters made up of 3 double crochets, but all the rest of the clusters are made up of 4 double crochets. So just keep that in mind when you're going to do that. So let's begin the Evening Star motif. So let's begin. We're going to be starting off with the chain 4. That will count as a double crochet, and you watch how that will work. So we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Going 4th chain from the hook, we're going to start off and we're going to apply, this is the first round, is we're going to apply 11 double crochets into that one. So with this chains that I just skipped plus this one, you technically have 2 and you need a total of 12. So let's count those out together. So this is 3. Go right up over top of that straggler to trap it underneath the stitch. This is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Make sure that you do have 12, which includes that chain work. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Slip stitch it to the beginning chain that you started with to bring that into circle. If you went over top of the straggler, just simply turn it over, cut it out, and then begin round number 2 right now. The next round, as we begin, we're going to be starting off, but just keep an eye, we're going to start creating the corners in this next round. So you'll notice that there is a total of 3 clusters in a row like this, and then there's an extra space, and then 3, 3, 3. So just keep that in mind as you begin round number 2. So when we start our very first one here, we're going to be starting off with what is called as the beginner cluster, and this is the first cluster after a corner. So keep that in mind, so when we finish, the corner will be finished. So let's begin to do the beginning cluster. So you'll chain 3, 1, 2, and 3, and you're going to do your cluster in here. This is a 3 double crochet cluster, and this is what I was talking about with the clusters. So you're just going in, pulling through 2 and hold, and it's the same stitch that you're doing that into. Pull 3, and then you'll pull through all 3 loops. It's the only time you'll see 3 loops when you go to do this, and this is after a corner. So you're gonna chain 1 and then do the next 2 stitches the same way. So just wrap the hook now, going into the next one, pull through 2 and hold, and keep on doing that until you see 4 loops on the hook. Because we already started with the last stitch here, that's why there's 4. So when we started a fresh one, there was only 3. So pull through and then chain 1 and then move to the next one. So wrap, pull through 2, and keep doing that, and then pull through. Now after the third one that you see here, you want to chain total 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then starting in the very next one, you'll do the next 3 the same way. So just wrap the hook, pull through 2, and hold. And you want to see those 4 loops on there before you finish. And then chain 1 and then move to the next one and do the next one like same way. So I'll be quiet as you watch if you need to. So once the 3 are in there, so after the third one, chain 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then start in the very next one and continue that around. So please do this all the way around. I'll see you at the end of round number 2. So I'm coming up all the way around. I'm doing my last cluster. So as you do the last one, you have to join to the top of the first one with a chain 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then that's where you're going to begin round number 3. To begin round number 3, we have to get ourselves to the first chain 1 space. So move on over first. And this is where you're going to do the beginning cluster, but remember the clusters now working forward are 4 double crochets. So to do the beginning of one of those, you're going to chain 3 and then only apply 3 double crochets in the format. So just wrap and pull through, and then going in, pull through, and then in, pull through. So in the very first time you do it, there will only be 4 loops. Pull through all 4. Now to go in between the clusters, you then have to continue along. So once you pull through, you're only going to chain 1, and that will separate the clusters from each other, and then you'll do the 4 double crochet cluster in the next space. So they're building up in spaces. So now that we're doing the regular clusters, there will be a total of 5 loops on the hook before you pull through everything. So there's 5. Pull through. We're gonna head into the corner, so but before we do the corner, I need you to chain 2. So there's only chain 1 when it separates these, but after we head into the corner it's chain 2, and there will be 5 double crochet into the corner space. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And now we're gonna start another side. So chain 2 before you begin, and then come into the space in between the 2 clusters, and that's where you'll begin your 4 double crochet cluster. Chain 1 to separate that from the friend next door. Some people don't like when I use terms like that. It's unprofessional, but I learned, especially with my mom as a kid, to use memory hooks, and that's kind of one of mine. So we have that. We have our 4, so we have 5. We have our 4 double crochets with that one, so it gives you 5 loops. Pull through, and we're heading to a corner. So chain 2, and then coming into the next one. I find it remarkable on YouTube on what people complain about. It's really quite astounding some days. And there's a lot of things people complain about that are just not anything I can control. And then some things I can, because my mouth does go off key. So chain 2 before you start a new one, and then coming into the next one between the 2 clusters, and do a 4 double crochet cluster. So hopefully you're understanding how this is getting done so far. Chain 1 to separate it from the next door neighbor. And so then that's it. Chain 2, because you're gonna head into another corner, and I need you to do this same concept all the way around. So there's 5 double crochets, chain 2, and then start another side with your clusters, and I'll be right back in a moment, and this will be round number 3. Once you get all the way back around, you got your last corner, chain 2 before you do anything, and then attach it to the top of the first cluster that you started with, and that will conclude there. And so you will see that these it's got a little bit more narrow. The first one always looks a little off. If it were me and this was my pattern, I would have chained only 2 and then done your 3 double crochets to do that cluster, but it's not my pattern, so that's something that I would have decided to do for myself. But again, if you find your own ways and things, you know, follow your heart. Let's begin and move on to round number 4. So let's begin number 4. So you slip stitch between the 2 clusters and begin another beginning one. So let me show you the difference of that cluster. So it says chain 3 and then do the 3 double crochet for the cluster. If you chain 2, it looks a little more even. So I'm just gonna do that one. So I'm only chaining 2 instead. And so I got my 4. See the difference that it looks? It doesn't stand out as much. So you can decide to do what you want to do. So after you have this cluster done, chain 2, and I need you to put only 1 double crochet in the next chain 2 space. I need you to put 1 double crochet in the next 2 double crochets here. So 1 and 2, and so the middle one is next, it's in the corner, so I need you to put in 5 double crochets there. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, and let's continue again. So the next 2 in a row are going to be double crochet. So 1 and 2 in the space, 1 double crochet, and before you do the cluster, chain 2, which creates that space, and then do the only cluster that's left. It's right in the middle. It's a 4 double crochet cluster. Chain 2, do the space, and then the next 2, and then the middle one of that 5 is the corner, so you'll put in 5 double crochet. So 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So let's just do one more side together. So do the next 2 in a row, double crochet, do the space, so 1 double crochet, and then chain 2 before you begin the next cluster that's in between. Chain 2, and then go into the next space for 1 double crochet, and so forth. So please do this all the way around. This is round number 4. When you get all the way around, you have this last one, and then you're just gonna chain 2 and attach it to the top of the first cluster that you started with. So there you go. So actually it's a lot easier for me going the second time around, just so you know. So let's do round number 5. So in round number 5, we're now going to start these cluster works, but it will now be on the corners, and we're gonna get that established in this round. So right where you're sitting, I need you to chain 3, and then in the next chain 2 space, just remember it's a chain 2 space, there'll be 2 double crochets in there. So 1 and 2. Now you're gonna do 1 double crochet in the next 4. So we have 1, 2, 3 and 4. And this should leave you so that when you skip, you're going into the middle of the grouping of 5. So to skip, you're gonna chain 3, and you're gonna do that 4 double crochet cluster, so skipping 1 and going into the middle one right there, and that will get you started on doing your cluster works on the corner. Pull through everything and then chain 3, so 1, 2 and 3. So the easiest way to remember this is that you're gonna skip the first one out, and you're gonna double crochet in each of the double crochets, and then if there's a chain 2 space, just put in 2 double crochet into the chain 2 space, which I'm about to do. Okay, 1 into the top of the cluster, which is midway through, and then there's another chain 2 space. So after the chain 2 space, just remember you only have 4 to do. So we have 1, 2, 3 and 4, and then chain 3. So 1, 2, 3, skip 1 and go to that one there, and that will be the middle one of the grouping of 5 if you look at it, and there will be a cluster there, 4 double crochet cluster. It's 1, 2, 3. So skip in the next one, and then again, like I said, so just double crochet in each of the double crochets, and then chain 2 spaces to put in 2 there, 1 into the cluster midway through, and just remember after the last chain 2 space after the cluster, it's just 4 in a row, and then continue to do the corner the same way that I've been showing you. Please do this all the way around. This is round number it's either 5 or 6. So please do this all the way around. I'll see you in the next round in a moment. So I've already come all the way around, and we're now going to round number 6. So there's only 7 rounds in this thing because you see it's getting bigger. So right where we're sitting, we're going to just chain 3, and we just need to double crochet in each of the next 6. That takes you to the last double crochet before the space. So I don't know if you really truly need to count that or not. I did when I first started the first time, but I realized I didn't have to, as long as you're confident in your stitches, right? And then once you get to that last one, you're going to put in 2 clusters. So to do that first, you're going to chain 2 to create that space that you need, and then it'll be a 4 double crochet cluster. And when you go to do this one here, is that you want to apply it to the chain work itself so that it's holding closer to the chain. So it's the last chain before the cluster, so right into the chain work. So if you put it right around the chain, it will slide and it will lose its tightness. Okay, and then to turn the corner, to do that, then you're just going to chain 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then come into the chain after the cluster, so right here, and you'll do another cluster there, and that will hold it nicely together. I'm usually not a fan of doing crochet work into chains once they're established, but you know, sometimes you just gotta do what you gotta do. So now that that's in, chain 2, and then you're gonna jump and you're gonna just double crochet all the remaining of that, and then you'll do the next corner just the way I showed you. So please do this all the way around. This is round number 6, and we have one more round to do after this, and I'll be back in just a moment. So I'm coming up all the way around on round number 6 and just attach it to the beginning, and let's begin the final round, round number 7, which is going to be a nice easy round. So let's begin that next. Round number 7, basically everything gets something, and it's just a matter of the counts. So we're just gonna chain up 1, and each one of these double crochets are gonna get 1 single crochet in each. So you can count it if you want to, but I don't think you need to. So how many chains did you skip before doing the first cluster? It was 2. So there's gonna be 2 single crochets around the space. There's going to be 1 single crochet in the cluster itself, and this is a 5 chain space in the corner, but to get the corner to turn nicely, you're going to put in 7. So corners are 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then just starting again down the next side. So 1 in the cluster. This is a chain 2 space, so there's 2 in there, the space itself, and then there's 1 single crochet in each of the double crochets across, and then again 2 into the space, 1 into the cluster, 7 into the corner, 1 into the cluster, 2 into the space, and so forth. Please do this for round number 7, and we'll be back here in just a moment. So I'm coming up all the way around to the number 7 here, and this is where the journey ends. So you'll fasten this off, and then you'll go back and apply a border to it. Now the border is just what we already know. The link is in the more information of this video if you would like to do that in order to attach it. Of course you can use these squares for anything else that you would like to make as well. This one I'm glad to actually have learned how to do that. I've seen this like several times, this kind of pattern, but I've never done it. So it's kind of neat to be able to learn something new, which is the whole point of the sampler. So next time is going to be the final motif of this whole blanket, and it is the Rose Granny motif. This it's probably the one that's been getting the most questions on, and even for myself I was questioning that as well, but again I was tired last night as I've explained earlier. So let's continue our journey, and to get your border done, get 3, and we'll move on to the final of the Rose Granny motif in a moment.